Very good afternoon, students. In this video, I am going to show you the various sections of passing through the brain. Now, this is the brain, okay? This is the anterior end, or that is the frontal lobe is here, and this is the occipital lobe is there. This is the superolateral border, okay? This is the left cerebral hemisphere. This is the right cerebral hemisphere, separated by a fissure, longitudinal fissure, which is placed in midline. Okay, I have given a cut to this cerebral hemisphere so as to expose the median section. Okay, so we have divided this cerebrum, this brain, into the right and left half, okay, by the mid-sagittal section. So just I will open this. Okay, these two cerebral hemispheres, thus they were separated like this. This is the left cerebral hemisphere, this is that of the right cerebral hemisphere there. And here you are seeing the medial surface of the cerebrum, okay, and the cut section, this is the brain stem is seen in the cut section. Let us see what are the different parts of the cerebrum and that of the brain later, which are seen onto this surface, okay, that is from the medial surface or in the mid-sagittal section. Okay, let me tell you first with that of the right section here, and if something will be missing, I will tell you again from that of the left section also, okay. So this is the medial surface. For orientation, I will tell you that this is the frontal pole, this is the occipital pole here, this is the supromedial border, okay. And then here, if you can see, here is the temporal pole is there on the inferior surface, okay. This is the temporal pole is there. Now, what you see here is the striking feature of this is that this is the band of the white fiber called as the corpus callosum, okay. Here it is the genu of the corpus callosum, the body of the corpus callosum, and this is the splenium of the corpus callosum is seen here. Now these are the fibers, the white fibers which connects the right cerebral hemisphere with the left cerebral hemisphere, that is the corresponding area of the cerebrum, are connected by this band which crosses the midline, and this section is passing through the midline. Thus it is a section of the corpus callosum, okay, corpus callosum. Now about the corpus callosum surrounding here, this is the medial surface of the cerebral hemisphere, showing the various gyri and sulci. And this is the callosal sulcus, then cingulate sulcus, cingulate gyrus, like that. In this lobe you are seeing this is the parieto-occipital sulcus, and this one is the calcarine sulcus, around which in the last video we learned that there will be the visual area number 7, going right up to the occipital pole, okay. So this is the medial surface of the cerebral hemisphere, showing the various sulci and gyri. I have told you the parts of the corpus callosum, okay, and just below the corpus callosum is the presence of a septum here. See this septum where I am touching it with the tip of the brush. This is the septum pellucidum, that is called as septum pellucidum. Now this septum pellucidum is a midline structure, but in this section it has come on to the right side section, okay, of the right hemisphere it has come. And then below here this is the rostrum, and this structure is called as the anterior commissure, anterior commissure. Just from the anterior commissure running upward is the band of the white fiber, and this is called as the fornix. That means septum pellucidum lies in the concavity of the corpus callosum, and below it is attached to the fornix. So this is the septum pellucidum, and this structure is the fornix. This is the anterior commissure is here. Okay, going from again similar to that of the corpus callosum. This also connect the areas of the right cerebral hemisphere to the left. Thus, it also crosses the midline. It also crosses the midline. Let us see this structure in the left hemisphere again. Okay. So, this in the left hemisphere, this is the medial surface of the cerebellum, cerebrum, medial surface. This is the parieto-occipital sulcus, and this one is the calcarine sulcus. Okay, calcarine sulcus. Again, this is the corpus callosum. It is the genu, the rostrum, the body of the, and this one is the splenium. Now, here since the septum pellucidum has gone to the opposite half of the cerebral hemisphere, which was a midline structure. Now, through this gap deep to that and below this corpus callosum and above this band, which is the fornix, half of the fornix was cut into this lobe, right lobe, and another has come to the left lobe. This is the fornix is here. Again, this is the anterior commissure is here. Okay, let us see. This is anterior, which was here also. The anterior commissure was here. So this is the anterior commissure. Right. Just then we will see these structures again, the structures here, that means which are seen in this. This is a cavity of the lateral ventricle, which has a right and left cavity of lateral ventricle. Since it is a left ventricle, this is the left lateral ventricle. Okay, both right and left lateral ventricle are separated by this septum pellucidum. Okay, by this membranous structure, the septum pellucidum. Right. Now, if you will see through this opening, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say gap here in the just below that of the corpus callosum in the left ventricle here, left ventricle here, lateral ventricle, you will see that there is a presence of a tuft-like structure here, which is capillary, and this is choroid plexus, and which is the site for production of CSF. So this is the choroid plexus of the lateral ventricle. Okay, and here there is an bulging is seen here in this, and this is the caudate nucleus anteriorly towards the genu of the corpus callosum. This is the head of the caudate nucleus, and then this is the body of the caudate nucleus. Okay, so this structure are seen through the lateral ventricle. Okay, lateral ventricle. Let us come to the lower part below that of the fornix. Okay, so I will show you first in the right section. Okay, so here below the fornix, okay, you can see there is an opening here just behind that of the anterior commissure, and this is the interventricular opening in which I am passing my brush. You can see this is a opening is seen. It is anterior interventricular foramina. Right. Now, through this foramina, you can also see the bulging of a slight choroid plexus also. But just below this, just below the fornix, you are seeing this mass. Okay, and this mass is nothing, going right up to here, is nothing but the thalamus. So this is thalamus, and this surface of the thalamus is shining, which is the medial surface. This will be the superior surface of the thalamus. Now the medial surface is nothing but the lateral boundary of the third ventricle. Okay, of the third ventricle. So this part is thalamus, and this bulging here in the thalamus is nothing but the interthalamic adhesion. If you see this interthalamic adhesion, it connects the thalamus of the right with that of the left side. It is also seen in this, okay, in the left. This is that interthalamic adhesion. That means at this point, right and left thalamus, they are continuous with each other. So this whole thing is the thalamus, okay, whole thing is the left thalamus. This is that of the right thalamus is here, interventricular foramina is here, and then if you trace this interventricular foramina, where I am tracing with the tip of the brush, this is going here, This is a sulcus-like structure going here, and this is at the inferior border of the thalamus. Okay, and then these two swelling which are seen here, they are the posterior aspect of the midbrain. That means this small area is midbrain, and this bulging is that of the pons. So this small area is the midbrain. Okay, let us see this sulcus, which is called as the hypothalamic sulcus, which lies here just below that of the thalamus. See, this sulcus is going here, and then it is passing here in a canal in the midbrain. This is the midbrain part I told you, and this is passing. This is a tunnel-like structure is passing here. A cerebral aqueduct. This is called a cerebral aqueduct, and this was the hypothalamic sulcus. Below the hypothalamic sulcus, which extend anteriorly up to the interventricular foramina and posteriorly up to a canal inside the midbrain, that is the cerebral aqueduct. So this is that hypothalamic sulcus. And below the hypothalamic sulcus, this small area, okay, this is the part of the hypothalamus. So this is thalamus and this is hypothalamus. The medial surface of the thalamus and hypothalamus both are covered by the ependyma. That's why they are shining, and they form the lateral wall of the third ventricle, which is nothing but the space between the thalamus and hypothalamus on the right and that of the left side, Now, in this posterior surface of the midbrain, you are seeing two bulgings, or these are called as superior and inferior colliculus on each side. Okay, this superior and inferior colliculus I will show you by tilting it here, which is seen better here in this way. You can see that these are the two small swellings, okay, superior and the inferior colliculus. Let me remove these blood vessels from this area, okay, from gyri and sulci, and then you can clearly see these two bulgings here on the posterior aspect of the midbrain, superior and inferior colliculi. Okay, so two are on right side and two are on the left side of the midline. So there are two superior colliculi and the two inferior colliculi. Since it is a section passing exactly through the midline, two will go, superior and inferior of one side will go on right side, and superior and inferior will go on to the left side here. Okay, left side here. Okay, if you will see more carefully, then let us see the boundary of this hypothalamus. If you will see, here is the anterior commissure just below the interventricular foramina. Then there is a structure what is called as the lamina terminalis, where I am just putting my brush. This is from anterior commissure right up to this optic chiasma. This is the optic chiasma. Okay, so up to optic chiasma, this vertical structure is called as the lamina terminalis, from anterior commissure to the optic chiasma. And then from optic chiasma it will go upward, and there is an infundibular stalk through which the it is giving attachment to the posterior pituitary. Okay, so the pituitary gland is attached to the infundibular stalk, which is not here. Okay, not in this section. You cannot just find the infundibular stalk, that is broken. Okay, so broken, but it lies here. Okay, just above and behind that of the optic chiasma section. This is infundibular stalk. Just after the infundibular stalk, you will get this rounded swelling on the inferior surface, which is part of the hypothalamus. Okay, this rounded body is called as the mamillary body. See this structure? This is the mamillary body. See this seen from this side also. This is mamillary body. So it is the right mamillary body, and I will try to show you the left mamillary body also, which is in the left half of this section. Okay, so this is that the left mamillary body. These are the rounded structure. So if again I will trace the structures from above downwards, it is the anterior commissure, This is the Lamina Terminalis, the optic chiasma, then the infundibulary stalk, which is not here, it is broken, and just behind the infundibulary stalk, this is the mamillary body, and then it continues with that of the space or the area which is called as the interpeduncular fossa. The posterior perforated substance is here, just behind the mamillary body. Okay, and this is the anterior aspect of the midbrain. Okay, anterior aspect of the midbrain. This is the posterior, and in the midbrain, I have already told you this tunnel-like space which is going is nothing but the cerebral aqueduct. Right. Okay. Let me see if I can show you some other structure here, that is the pineal gland. Okay, it is not here, but it lies above the mammillary bodies. I mean to say colliculus, superior and inferior colliculi. Okay, it is broken from this part. Okay, otherwise this is the position for that of the infant, I mean to say pituitary, pineal gland. Okay, it is here is the pineal gland, right? Okay, if you have seen this structure, let us go to see the structure which is seen in the cross section here. Okay, I already told you about the midbrain here and the posterior perforated substance, the colliculi. Okay, this part is that of the pons. This bulbar swelling which is seen here, this is the pons is here, and the pons posteriorly is forming the floor of the ventricle, which is said to be the fourth ventricle. So third ventricle was between two thalami and hypothalamus, okay, which continues with that of the cerebral aqueduct of midbrain, and this open into another ventricle that is called as the fourth ventricle. So where lies the fourth ventricle? Fourth ventricle anteriorly is bounded by the posterior surface of the pons here, upper part of the medulla, okay, and posteriorly it is bounded by the superior medullary vellum, which starts just below the inferior colliculus on either side and goes towards the cerebellum inside it, and this is the another plexus you are seeing, the choroid plexus of the fourth ventricle. That tuft-like structure is nothing but the posterior, this choroid plexus of the fourth ventricle is there, and then this in the lower part of the medulla. Okay, now this fourth ventricle will become continuous as a canal. Okay, and this is called as the central canal, which will go into the close part of the medulla, which is not here, it has been cut here, and then it will continue with the spinal cord. Okay, it will continue. So the brain stem is here, that is the midbrain, the pons and medulla, and behind the pons and medulla there is presence of this structure which is called as the lesser brain, and this is the cerebellum. So this part is called as the cerebellum, right? And there is a space between cerebellum and the inferior surface of this lobe, that is the occipital lobe, and it is separated by the tentorium cerebelli. This is the fold up dura mater. Okay, that means the cerebellum, pons and medulla, they lie in the posterior cranial fossa, separating themselves from that of the tentorium cerebelli. Okay, to the cerebrum through that of the tentorium cerebelli, which is the fold of the dura mater. So this is the cerebellum. So if you will see here in this lobe, in this part of the cut section, okay, this is the lateral ventricle, which will open in the intraventricular foramina, and then this CSF, which is formed in the lateral ventricle, will come to the third ventricle. From third ventricle through the cerebral aqueduct, it will go into the fourth ventricle here. It will go into the fourth ventricle. I hope this is enough for the mid-sagittal section of cerebral hemisphere on right and the left lobe. Let us come to another section here, okay, which I will say that it is the coronal section. So before I come to the coronal section, as my coronal section is not that good. Okay, so this is that coronal section. Okay, and this coronal section is that of the right side. Okay, see this coronal, half of the coronal section is here because I have cut it from the half of the cerebrum. Okay, cerebral hemisphere. So this is that coronal section. In this coronal section you can see the various structure. Now this is the same, the pons, the medulla, the cerebellum. Okay, and this is the cerebral peduncle are here. So this section is passing just in front of the cerebral peduncle. Okay, so what you see here is the corpus callosum. This is the body of the, I said that the corpus callosum are the fibers which connect the cerebral cortex of right and the left cerebral hemisphere. So this is the corpus callosum cut transversely, I may say cut here in the coronal section. Then you can see here there is a mass of the gray matter. See this in the if you see it from medial aspect, this is the lateral ventricle, and in the last section I have shown you that there is a presence of the caudate nucleus in the lateral wall of the lateral ventricle, and here it is tail. So a small part of the caudate nucleus is shown here. Then what you see here is this was the thalamus. See this on medial surface, I have shown you that this is the thalamus, and this thalamus is cut here. So this part is the thalamus. This is. So this is a small part of the caudate nucleus. Then it is the thalamus is here, and then this gray matter collection which is lentiform in shape, it is the lentiform nucleus. And lentiform nucleus has two parts. Okay, globus pallidus and the putamen and the globus pallidus is there. Okay, two part. We will learn about more detail about this lentiform nucleus. Okay, and there is this band of the fibers going. See this band of the fibers going here. One on medial side it is bounded by the caudate nucleus and thalamus, and on lateral side it is bounded by the lentiform nucleus, and this band of the fibers is called as the internal capsule. And if you trace it on the inferior surface of the cerebral hemisphere, this is continuous with the cerebral peduncle, and from cerebral peduncle these fibers will go into the pons and medulla. So this is that cerebral peduncle as seen from the inferior aspect, that is the anterior surface of the midbrain. Okay, so this is the internal capsule continuous here in the cerebral peduncle is here. Then this is the inferior surface of the cerebrum. This is the suprolateral surface of the cerebrum, that is the supromedial and infralateral borders in between. This is the supralateral surface. This hidden cortex is there. Okay, if I remove this from the lateral supralateral surface, what is called as operculum, okay, we will go inside a hidden part of the cerebral cortex, and this hidden part of the cerebral cortex is called as the insula. Okay, this is, you are seeing the gyroid situated deep inside, and these gyri and sulci, they are the part of the insula. Okay, this is the part, and this is called as operculum. So there is an upper insula and operculum, and this insula is in close relation to that of the lentiform nucleus. Deeply lies the lentiform nucleus, and there is a band of the gray matter here. See, very thin band of the gray matter is going, and this is called as claustrum. You can zoom it, okay, in your this mobile or this laptop, and you can see this. This is the claustrum. So this is insula, the claustrum, lentiform nucleus, this internal capsule, thalamus, and this is the caudate nucleus. Now these are the structures seen into the coronal section. I will tell you this coronal section as much could not be seen in this section from the book itself. Let us see the coronal section. Let me find it, this coronal section from the book. Okay. Just a minute. Okay, just a minute. Yes, this I got it. Okay, this is the same book which I have used in the last videos also, the Neuroanatomy for Medical Student, written by me and published by the Wolters Kluwer. Okay, I am really thankful for Wolters Kluwer to show it these diagrams from this book. You can see this is the whole of the cerebellum was cut in the coronal section. Okay, we had seen only half of that. Okay, half. This was insula. Operculum is here, supralateral surface is here, this is the inferior surface is here, this is the medial surface was there, this was the corpus callosum, fornix and septum pellucidum, which was not in case of our section. So this is fornix and the septum pellucidum is there. So this is the lateral ventricle. And this part was the thalamus. This is the thalamus. Okay, the lentiform nucleus in this part of the section is shown, but it's not very good. That means this we have taken it much more anteriorly. Posteriorly we have taken it here. And in between the two thalamus, this is the third ventricle, the mamillary body are seen here, the mamillary, which are in the floor of the this interpedunculaire fossa, where it is the part of the hypothalamus. So this is bounded by two thalami. This is the third ventricle, and this part is the hypothalamus. This part is hypothalamus, and this is the internal capsule. White band of the fibers going are that of the internal. So this is the coronal section of cerebrum, which will differ from place to place. Okay, anterior to posterior, there may be many coronal section. Okay, in this line diagram also you can see this is the caudate nucleus. Okay, the body and becoming the tail now soon, and this is the thalamus, and this is the two lateral ventricles are septum pellucidum, the fornix, and in between the two thalami this is the third ventricle is there, and just lateral to the thalamus this part is the internal capsule, and this gray matter collection is nothing but the lentiform nucleus. And just lateral to the lentiform nucleus, I told you that there is a gray strip, what is called as claustrum, which is very close to the insula. Okay, it is just close, deep to that of the insula. This is corpus callosum, the mammillary bodies, as I have shown you in this section. So this was the coronal section. Let us come to understand the anatomy of the cerebral hemisphere by seeing another section, that is called as the horizontal section. And horizontal section, if we take, just now I am not having the horizontal section, but I will cut and show you the horizontal section. Just see this in this diagram itself. This is the whole of the cerebral hemisphere. Okay, our brain has been cut into the horizontal section, and this is the the frontal pole, this is occipital pole, this is the supralateral border, and this is the corpus callosum, that is the genu, anteriormost part of the corpus callosum. Okay, then this is septum pellucidum, and this is the fornix, and this is the cavity of the lateral ventricle. So this is these two seen on either side, they are the head of the caudate nucleus. And then this is a large mass of the thalamus, and in between the two thalamus this is the third ventricle. See this, how slit like structure is the third ventricle, and then this is the internal capsule, and here the internal capsule shows the two limbs, an anterior limb which lies between this lentiform nucleus here and the caudate nucleus is the anterior limb. Then this is the band or the genu, and this part of the white matter, which is part of the internal capsule, is called as posterior limb, which lies between thalamus medially and lentiform nucleus laterally. Okay, and this is that strip of the gray matter claustrum, this is that insula. Okay, again in the horizontal section also. Okay, and then through the gap below the splenium, this section is passing below the splenium, and you can see the four swellings here. They are the superior and inferior colliculi of the midbrain. This is the part of the lateral ventricle which you will understand only when you will read the complete lateral ventricle. Okay, this band of the fiber which is going here posteriorly towards the area number 17 is called as the optic radiation fibers. Okay, these R-shaped fibers going, they are of the optic radiation fibers. So this section is that of the horizontal section. Okay, it is that horizontal section. So you have learned the anatomy of the brain into three sections, cerebrum particularly, into three sections by cutting the mid-sagittal section, by cutting a coronal section, and by cutting a horizontal section. So this completes the three different sections of the brain. Thank you very much for watching this video.